Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your co-host, Dan Maldonado. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. Let me introduce you to my co-host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Good evening, Dan. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm so good. It's Monday and we are recording again. It is exciting to be back in the studio.
Yes, it is. And look at you looking dapper and looking seasonably appropriate with your flannel shirt and all that. I like it. Looks good.
You got to go flannel, right? You got your flannel. 24 hours of Daytona hat on today. So you're ready for that race, which will be coming up in January.
Yeah, this is from 4 years ago, 2017. So wow. I can't believe it's been that long since, Lance and I were there. So a lot of fun. Hey, but we attempt to give you a fan's perspective on IndyCar racing, the races, news and notes around the series. Occasionally, we'll have something on F1, IMSA, and NASCAR. We're not insiders, just lifelong fans of IndyCar and motorsports. In this episode, we discuss a roundup of news and notes in IndyCar, IMSA, and F1.
So today's episode occasionally comes into the picture.
Yes, it does.
When it comes into the picture with F1 and IMSA.
It does. It does for sure. So, hey, leading the lineup, IndyCar, of course, because we're an IndyCar podcast. Andretti Autosport confirmed their lineup with Devlin DeFrancesco in the number 29. He joins the already confirmed Herdamania 2.0, Romain Grosjean and Alexander Rossi. As you're aware, I am not a fan of this move. It all starts with the idea that I'm not sure that he proved himself in Indy Lights, finishing 6th this past season, while the guy who won the championship is signed up at Foyt. I'm going to stop there and let you opine, and then I'll move on.
I knew you were not happy with this. I think my phone blew up a ton when this happened from you.
Yep.
You're reaching out to me going, what is going on here? Why is Devlin in that seat when it should be Kirkwood based on results? But results don't speak the full story. Some of it has to do with potentially personality. Some of it has to do with your wallet, how deep it might be. Maybe that's it.
It's the only thing it has to do with.
Yeah, it's Scott. But Kyle came out of that with his bonus, right, for winning the Indy Lights, and still couldn't land the Andretti seat. So I don't know. I can't wait to see them in interviews and see who's got more personality, because I think that's what it came down to.
Yeah, I don't. It's Devlin's dad is supporting the effort there and is ponying up the budget. I don't think that's the only reason why, but I mean that's certainly number one, driving that by far. Of course, there was a big PR campaign going on after it was announced about how the Indy cars would suit Devlin's driving style better than the Indy Lights cars did. Don't know how that works, but I'm not a driver. Nevertheless, that's what that is. I would rather have seen him take another year in Indy Lights, maybe try to drive for the championship there and see what he can do to accomplish that and put Kyle Kirkwood in that 29. Here's the deal. This is because of the failed F1 takeover by Andretti Autosport, with Andretti trying to buy Alfa Romeo, right? Or Sauber, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Kirkwood was on contract, or Andretti had some sort of option with him until like November 1st, whatever that was going to happen. And if he couldn't put him in one of his cars, he had to let him go. So Kirkwood picks up at Foyt. DeFrancesco ends up moving up from Andretti Indy Lights and taking that car, Formula occupied by our friend James Hinchcliffe. So not a fan of that move. Not sure I'll be a fan of that move. I'm more than willing to eat as much crow as I need to eat if he posts some results next year. I don't see it happening. It wouldn't be my anticipation. So moving on to Kyle. Oh, go ahead.
So how you saw it was that Devlin and Kyle would have been in that car if that deal would have been with Andretti Autosport. If that deal would have gone through with Sauber, Alfa Romeo.
Yep. Yeah. Kyle would have been in probably Colton's car, and then Kirkwood would be in the 29, because I think he was destined for the 29 and has been for months. So Kirkwood's definitely earned the opportunity to move into IndyCar, to step up to the big show. I think he's definitely earned the, I don't want to say the right, but he's earned the seat at Andretti. He's definitely earned the seat at Foyt. But here's the thing. So I saw something when they started talking about Kirkwood going to Foyt, and something essentially saying that, Foyt's going to be able to bring in the right support team now that they signed Kirkwood. I have to ask you, Tim, I have to ask the listeners, what makes this different than bringing in somebody like a Tony Kanaan or someone like a Sebastian Bourdais that's going to just suddenly have people knocking on the door to join Foyt from an engineering standpoint, support standpoint, just because they signed last year's Indy Lights champion?
I don't think it does anything.
The
only thing that it can be is that he's bringing money to the table, right? And it's 1.6 or $1.3 million. And that's the only thing that can attract that sort of talent, is paying those guys maybe more than what they're worth. And those guys being the engineers and things of that sort. But when you've got Bourdais and you got Kanaan, especially Bourdais, in my opinion, who's got great talent. He's got great acumen when it comes to setting up cars and things of that sort. I think you missed the boat when you had Bourdais on the team and you didn't have results. That kind of showed the true team colors, in my opinion.
I agree. I don't know what makes this any different. So I'm extraordinarily hopeful that things work out for Kyle, for things that work out for Foyt, as I've been saying here for weeks. I hate to see that team trundling around at the back of the grid and just kind of filling space. And I hate that for that team. But I'm going to hate it even more if this just goes south in 22, because this was the only seat that was available for Kirkwood. So
yeah. So did Rocket go away?
I don't know. There's really not been much, in terms of confirmation of what's happening there. Personnel they got to put together. Not sure what's happening with the sponsorship, with the Rocket sponsorship in particular. I think Dalton Collette will be there, but he brings his own sponsorship package, I believe. Again, not an insider, right? Just a fan. But it looks like he brings his own. So, and Kyle's bringing his Indy Lights bonus, but they're going to have to put some sort of budget together. Otherwise, I mean,
yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
David Malucas. These are all new names to us, Timmy. We're going to have to learn these guys next year. David Malucas, who finished second in Indy Lights, will likely join Dale Coyne, but that hasn't yet been confirmed. Frankly, between Kyle and David, I think David Malucas has a better shot of posting results next year.
Well, not than Devlin, right? I think you've got, well,
I don't know. I don't buy it.
Yeah, well, I think of Andretti Autosport and how dominant they can be. And so I think you'd have a good chance with Devlin just because of the backing that you have, and you have got multiple teammates that are really good. So I think there you could maybe say Devlin's going to have an edge up, and we know he'll have an edge up, I believe, from the engineering side and things of that sort. So David and Kyle there are going to have to get their work done, but I think David is going to probably do better than Kyle for sure.
I think David's going to do better than Kyle and Devlin.
Yeah.
I think he'll finish higher than both of those guys. Yeah,
I like Coyne Racing. I like what they've done. Obviously, they had Grosjean last year. He did really well. And they always come through and have a good showing. It's, so that speaks to the team there. And if you're second in the championship, you're just as good, if not as good as Kyle Kirkwood. And then you got to say Devlin's probably a couple levels down.
Yeah, I agree with that. Continuing on with IndyCar, U.S. Air Force confirmed that they'll not be back with Ed Carpenter Racing next year. This puts Connor Daly walking the streets looking for budget. He stated a few times, he being Connor Daly, stated a few times on social media and in Racer Magazine article, I believe, that he has some budget, but maybe not enough. If you're Ed Carpenter, do you dip into your own pocket or try to make do to keep Connor in that car?
I only hear good things about Connor and his driving and how good he is in the car. So maybe you do. I haven't seen that when it comes to results, but at the end of the day, if that's what people say and they can see his talent within and he just hasn't gotten that break that he's needed in order to have that breakout season, then yeah, I think you do. Otherwise, you look for others and you move on if you're Ed Carpenter.
Speaking of moving on, right? One of the names that's mentioned there is Ryan Hunter-Reay, and I don't think that Ryan Hunter-Reay comes to fruition in that car if Ryan's not bringing budget, and I don't think Ryan's bringing budget. The other name that was sort of put forth as a possible in that car also was Oliver Askew. Now, whether or not this is known, but I couldn't find anything that confirmed it, but Ed Carpenter interestingly stated that Oliver Askew was, quote, off the board. I didn't see anything official, but it would appear that Oliver Askew is going to Formula E with Andretti's Avalanche Formula E team in 22.
Yeah, I saw that as well, and I thought it was official, but you're telling me it's not. I thought it was announced that he was going there, and that was his next move.
It's possible. I will look for a Dear Knucklehead email coming in here in the next week or so, but I didn't.
I
saw
it through I thought I saw it through the Twitter feed that he was going over there and he was going to go with Andretti on Formula E, which is, it's a full seat ride. So if you get that and you prove some results, you're in a good organization, and then from there you just try to move back into IndyCar. I would think is what his goal is, but Andretti's everywhere. You never know. You might find yourself in Formula One.
Yeah, right. I like this move. I like the idea that Oliver would go there and he would compete. There's some big names competing in Formula E. Some guys who are looking to move up to Formula One, guys who are looking to move up to IndyCar. Some very accomplished drivers in there. Speaking of, right, is Mercedes Formula E drivers, Stefan Van Dorn and Nick DeVries. Stefan Van Dorn is a 3-year veteran of McLaren Formula One. So that's the likes of the people that Oliver will be out going wheel to wheel against in Formula E. Speaking of these same two drivers, Stefan Van Dorn and Nick DeVries, so they're scheduling IndyCar test sessions, which I find interesting. Nick, well. Yeah, very interesting. Nick is scheduled to test for Meyer-Shank. This one I put top of the list of the two because this surprised me. I mean, they have already announced their two full-time drivers in 22 will be Elio Castroneves and Simon Pagenaud. So sort of filling the pipeline, do you think, Tim?
I would assume so. Yeah, I guess, I think Meyer-Shank will have a 3-car team, right, for Indy, potentially. And maybe this is something that they're just kind of looking at different drivers for fitting that, or maybe they'll do some other races, maybe the IndyCar Grand Prix over at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So maybe, yeah, it's interesting. You've got Castroneves and Pagenaud who are up in age. So maybe it's, trying to backfill after these guys after a couple of years and just see what these drivers can do. And maybe it's just letting them feel out and shake down that car.
Yeah. So Meyer-Shank's 2 full-time drivers in 22, and we don't know how long those deals are, but is Elio Castroneves is 46 and Simon Pagenaud is 37.
Mm-hmm. Castroneves is a 2-year deal.
Is that a 2-year deal?
Yeah.
Probably the same then for Simon, you think?
Yeah, I would think so.
God, 2-year deal. 46, 47 years old. Wow.
I know they were talking about, I think they asked Castroneves not too long ago, are you going to pass Mario Andretti on driving in the IndyCars till you're past 50? That was the question that was posed. And he said, I never really thought about it, but the man doesn't age, number one.
No.
And number two, he's still fast. So I can see him being that guy that's out there at 51, 52 years old, still driving IndyCars around. So as long as someone gives him a seat and he's got results, I can see that happening.
Yeah, I think that's key, right? As long as somebody's willing to put him in the seat and there's budget to be had to have him in there, posts a couple of results here and there, and he continues to earn his ride. I mean, Why not?
Yeah, he looks 28 years old.
Exactly. He's not. He looks exactly like he did when he first came to Champ Car, right? To CART.
Yeah.
And he has not aged one day. Won the Indy 500 last year. He's the only guy who can go for 5. Because let's face it, none of those other guys are getting in there and going for 5. So that's a great story for May. And he's a great personality. He's a great personality. So why not? Hey, all the power to him.
Great and huge, right? Huge personality. He's so excited about everything. And then when he gets bumped off the track on morning practice, he's not a happy camper.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll see what happens here with these Formula E drivers coming in and testing here at Meyershank, at least one of them.
Yeah. And then the next one is the teammate Stefan Van Dorn. He's testing with Arrow McLaren. Stoffel, if you recall, was teammate to Fast Freddy Fernando Alonso at McLaren. Not a great campaign, to say the least. I'm just being polite there. Actually, not great for either one of them, really. This could be something to watch for 22 at Arrow McLaren, because I feel like they do want to run a third car. I think they're trying to be a little more thoughtful and a little more calculated with what they put in there. They don't want to just throw anybody in just because. So this could be an opportunity for Stoffel to get some seat time at select races in 22, or potentially, because we've seen it with this team, this warms the seat under Felix Rosenqvist.
I think you just made a reference back to James Hinchcliffe.
Hinch and Oliver Askew.
You're right. Not just one, but 2.
Right.
So that is very good insight from you, Dan. So I think, I think it's a little bit number 1 going to a third car, but number 2, Felix needs some results in 2022. Otherwise, he'll be out of his seat there for sure.
Yeah, he got creamed by his teammate.
Yes, he did.
And that's.
But yeah, what does that go down to? Car setup, and are the drivers driving like cars, or are they not? And in that scenario, when you look at that team, they definitely were not driving the same car. And if they were, one driving style is totally different than the other, which goes back to what happened at Ray Hall, Letterman, Langan, talking about that they're bringing drivers in that have similar driver setups.
Yeah. So
you're laughing over there, Dan. Why are you laughing?
Well, first of all, because Lanigan continues to be a challenge.
I know it's totally a challenge.
It doesn't,
and I apologize to that gentleman.
It doesn't take long for me to get derailed on something tiny like that, but it could be a matter of driving style. But and again, right, this is some of the things that we were trying to get to with Hinchcliffe was, if your teammate is doing that and the car philosophy has been established a certain way, what kind of flexibility do you have, right? You can do your best, but obviously they're not able to deliver a car to Felix's liking. We'll see what happens there. I think third car in select races in 22 is probably a given. Whether or not they'll all be Stefan Van Dorn, I doubt it. They'll probably do what Ray Hall did this past season, and that's audition a few guys in that car. Mm-hmm. They've got the budget, so similar to Ray Hall, they did not have to just pick up somebody who had a check. They had funding and they had a budget. They felt like they could put somebody in that car and be competitive regardless. I think that Arrow McLaren would do something similar, but I also think that if it looks pretty south for Rosenqvist, and we've already seen it with this team, they don't have any problem sending him home. See you, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't have any qualms about doing that. But that sort of brings me back to, you talk about car setup. We talked a little bit about that. And the thing that struck me in our last podcast was that practice is really limited. Mm-hmm. And so with more and more cars coming to the series and more teams and things of that sort, do you think IndyCar is going to look at that and go, you know what, we need more time on track during a race weekend for practice and setup and things of that sort. Of kind of what I've been hearing is, the drivers want it. They need a little more time in the car. If your setup's really bad when you get off the truck, you're lost for the weekend, and your weekends, you're just trying to salvage anything you can. So I would think, and I would hope that they're going to see some of those get extended over time here when we have more and more cars on track.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not the guy writing the check though, but I guess just looking at it from this perspective, right? You're already there. And I mean, sure, there's cost involved with tires and with engine and, the fuel and everything that, the track workers and, whatever else that happens there, but you're already there. And that's the biggest expense, right? It's people and transportation. So if you're already there and you have people in the stands, you might actually be able to sell a little bit more tickets because people are going to know they're going to see more on track time, and that more tickets translates to more money in the pocket of the promoters and, however that trickles through. Mm-hmm. So to your point, they don't go out and do a lot of, private testing like they used to back, when you and I first started getting, sort of interested in IndyCar. They don't do anywhere near that level of testing. And, they could probably do with some more practice time. I don't know that, Formula One practice, this free practice 1, 2, and 3 is really the way to go, but certainly more practice. And they're going to
take a 45-minute session, you lengthen it to an hour and 15, right? You add 30 minutes to it so that folks can make some changes to their car if needed.
Yeah.
But maybe in a session, maybe it's not enough time within a session to go take the car back and make a major change if you really need to do that. So maybe you need to add another session. But I think there's a solution for that. And there's IndyCar is going to figure it out and working with the teams. But from what I've been hearing, the 45 minutes that they have in these sessions is not enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's not, right? It's not enough. It's not enough for the drivers. Because like you said, if they unload and they're bad, they're just going to have a bad weekend because there's not a whole lot they can do otherwise. And, too, Tim, with the streaming with Peacock, there's more opportunities for eyes and exposure for sponsors and, all that stuff. Again, it's revenue for the series, it's revenue for the teams, and, it trickles through the entire series. So, hey, staying on McLaren before we move off on this, rumors of an Audi takeover of McLaren that got pretty heavy last week on the internets. It's primarily an F1 story, but if true, it's likely to have some sort of downstream effect on Aaron McLaren and IndyCar. If an Audi outright takeover of McLaren is in the cards, and that's actually what happens, Tim, is that good or bad for Aaron McLaren in IndyCar?
It's hard to say. I like McLaren back in IndyCar, so from my personal sake, it would be hard for me. But Audi's got a great program. They had a huge IMSA program that was so dominant. So maybe it could be a good thing too. But as a traditionalist, for me, I would be wanting to see McLaren stay in it and the McLaren name and not bring Audi in. But I'm always ready for another engine manufacturer. So maybe that leads that route. You never know.
Volkswagen.
And I always said that we need a high-end engine manufacturer, just a high-end brand to come in. That would be good to see it.
I don't know that they would do that though, right? Like I think if Audi takes over McLaren, maybe they keep it named McLaren, but I think they would keep the Audi name to the F1 platform, and they might use some of the other, Volkswagen family of brands in other sports. In the US, the only name that really would make sense here is Volkswagen. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that you would brand it Porsche. That's already been done. I don't know that that's the way to go. And what other brands are in the VW family that make any sense here?
Making an Audi. It's a great, high performance vehicle. They make, passenger vehicles that are for families too, that are high end. And so I don't think it's going to happen. So
It's the name
that's
on the
kind of
engine in my son's Volkswagen.
well, yeah, I get it.
In the Tiguan, it's all the parts in that thing say Audi on it, which I think is funny.
It's the Audi right
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll see, right? I don't think it's going to lead to an outright takeover, but what do I know? I don't think it'll lead to an outright takeover, but I think that you're going to see Volkswagen Group, in Formula one way or another, be it as Audi or be it as Porsche or, one of their other brands out there that they're going to do. Hey, this was the prior weekend, but did you watch any of the Petit Le Mans?
I did. I watched a lot of it, quite a bit of it, but I was kind of in and out a little bit. And it seemed, can I talk a little bit here about this? It seemed every time I tuned in, it was at a yellow flag, which was, it was a little disappointing on that front, but the end was amazing. But yes, I watched it. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did. I did. I like those races. I like watching those. And I think it starts with the idea that you have all these different classes all competing at the same time on the same track. I think that is so cool.
I like it, but I'd like it on a track that can support all the different classes.
Yes.
At the same time. And I think Road Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that series has sort of outgrown that track a little bit. And so that's where I feel that why I tuned in when I did, it was always at yellow. I just thought there wasn't enough room and there wasn't enough runoff and things of that sort. But it turned out to be a good race at the end of the day, right? I'm not bashing it by any means, but I if you put that at Coda, right, then maybe
different story. Yeah,
it's a different story. I don't think it'd be put on a great race too, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to move the race. I just thought that, like I said, the series has outgrown that track a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, you might be right. And the series speeds and the capability of the cars on track probably have outgrown that track a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it just needs to be brought up to stuff, but it was great. I watched it in the morning. I watched it in the evening, watched a little football in between and came back and it was still on. It was good.
Yeah, it's fun. I do like that. I mean, obviously, for those that'll watch this on YouTube, I'm wearing the 24 Hours of Daytona hat from 2017. But I enjoy that racing. I really do. I don't know what it is about that sports car racing that I enjoy. So I watched quite a bit of it. You're right. A little too many yellows in the way of that. I'm also continued to show how geographically challenged I am. I couldn't believe how cold it looked in Georgia early November. So, but it looked cold, man. When that sun went down, it was cold. So
the campfires were out. People were roasting their marshmallows and doing their thing. It looked like a great time. I'd love to go and hang out. And I think what sort of made it so interesting is the different classes that you mentioned, but not just the different classes, because what that represents is differential in speed and the closing speed. And if you're in a slower car, it's got to be much harder to drive in that series than if you're in the highest level there, because you got everything in front of you and that's all you're really focused on. Where if you're driving for one of the GTs, then you're always looking in your mirrors because you never know who's going to be there.
Yeah, the closing speed of like one of the Daytona prototypes coming across one of the GTs is just unreal. And then it just felt like in the dark, especially, it just looked even faster, right? Like they were coming on those guys even faster. It's just heart pounding watching that happen. So Mazda takes the overall win in DPI, which is ironically the last race for Mazda in this series, which I think is a huge win for them, up against 4 Cadillac entries, 2 Acura entries, all of which certainly have a significantly more budget than that Mazda team. So what a way to go out.
It was a huge win for Mazda.
Yeah. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan announced that they will continue their IMSA partnership with BMW. In 22, they will campaign the new BMW for GT3 in the GTD Pro category. Oh man,
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't want
glad
to
you
say
did
that
that and
again.
not me,
Yeah,
because I would screw that up completely.
they will campaign the new BMW M4 GT3 in the GTD Pro category. Then in 2023, the team will move up to the new LMDH category, which I think all major manufacturers have already announced, which would take them to Le Mans as well. Did you happen to see the rendering of the LMDH car?
I did take a look at it.
That remind you of anything?
No, it reminded me of a very futuristic type ride that is able to take in a lot of air and through that intake be able to produce a lot of power. That's what I saw. What did you
Exactly. You saw exactly what I did. A dustbuster vacuum.
The new and improved dustbuster?
Yep, the new and improved dustbuster, right? The BMW M powered dustbuster. So it's just a rendering. We have lots of optimism as to what the final product will look like, but nevertheless, it was the first thing I thought of. I was seeing flashbacks to Pontiac, the Pontiac van, whatever that thing was called back in the day.
Is it the Silhouette?
I think that was the olds. The Lumina was the Chevy. Pontiac Transport. Pontiac Transport van. There you go. If Billy were here, he would have known that one.
Yeah, I know. Why isn't Billy on here?
Good question. Nevertheless, that's what it is. So we'll see BMW continue its relationship with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing.
It's good to see. I like that.
I'm going to give you that paragraph next time.
Thank you.
Moving on to F1, things are getting interesting. And by interesting, I mean Mercedes and Red Bull are starting to look like a couple of petulant children. Red Bull messing around the wing of Mercedes in Brazil. Then Mercedes complaining that Max overdrove the corner with Lewis and didn't get any penalty. Are you
all the way down to corner workers at this last race?
Yes, right. Yeah, rogue corner worker waving flags, and
that's ridiculous.
They've gone completely insane. What are your thoughts on this?
I think they all need to put their, can I say panties on?
And just big boy pants on.
Their big boy pants on and take their panties off and put their big boy pants on and suck it up and race. And you know, I guess you're not allowed to touch the car. So keep your hands off, number one. They just need to duel it out on the track, which I think they did in this last race. So it was good. I don't care for the ticky-tacky stuff that goes on. I'd rather just have them get out there and race. And, you know, I'd like to keep the stewards out of it when it comes to, you know, was it too aggressive? It's racing, right? You're going to do what you need to do to win the championship and just let the guys race and move on.
Right. On this morning's, I suppose it's Sunday's The Race podcast, the Formula One race podcast, they talked about, would that have been a penalty if there wouldn't have been that large runoff area, if it would have been gravel or if it would have been, you know, something else that would have, you know, potentially impacted, you know, others races, you know, bringing gravel back on the track or even sending it into a, you know, a safety car where you had to fish out, you know, a Lewis Hamilton or something like that. Do you think that makes a difference?
Yeah, I think it totally does, right? The results of the actions really make a difference. So they went off into the runoff area, which is as long as the front straightaway anyways. So no harm, no foul. So no penalty, in my opinion.
Right. I've never raced anything, right? Let alone at, you know, this level in Formula One, but I absolutely would have done the exact same thing. If I were Max Verstappen, I would have absolutely driven him as far into that corner as possible. And they both went into the runoff area and then, you know, resumed racing. But I would have done exactly the same thing. I think to your point, Formula One and the stewards and everything really have to look at what is racing and what is quote racing, right? It's at the end of the day, it's still an entertainment property. So what are they doing to entertain the fans that are tuned in on TV, the ones who are in the stands? And I think that's what you really have to look at. I think you get this point where you're legislating it to a point where people are just uninterested in it. And let's face it, the idea that you're going to tune into these races, like yesterday's race in Qatar, you're just going to tune in and watch Lewis Hamilton drive away from second place guy and win by 8 seconds. That race is a drag.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can have somebody pushing somebody off into the runoff area, it makes it a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, I agree. And, it was sort of expected going into that race this weekend that Lewis was just going to drive away, which he pretty much did. And he covered every move that Max Verstappen put out there and won it pretty handily. I thought it was very interesting to look at all the tire malfunctions that happened there, but a lot of people trying to go on a one stop. That's reminiscent of Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Formula One folks being there and guys not even taking the green flag because of tire issues. So that's what that sort of reminded me of. But it was almost like, okay, let me see the start. Let's see where Max gets at the start, right? That was kind of the key thing. How far is he going to move up once the green or the red lights go off, whatever you want to call it? And he moved up really quick and was in second place within 7-10 laps, something like that, and trying to chase down Lewis. But at that point, Lewis had checked out.
Yeah, and there was no hope for that. And it was similar to what happened in Brazil with Hamilton taking a couple of penalties in Brazil, but he just drove away. Had the new engine in Brazil and just drove away from the rest of the field. And then again in Qatar. That's one I'm not sure of the pronunciation there either, so I apologize to the people. Again, Lewis just driving away. That Mercedes, whatever Mercedes has done, and I'm not suggesting they're doing anything illegal or untoward. Whatever they have done, they have laid it all out to get to the top step for the balance of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, they look really good. And it almost looked like Lewis was conserving a little bit there for a while. And then Max would gain, half a second to a second on him. And then all of a sudden Lewis would be like, all right, the crew kind of called him in and said, turn the wick up a little bit. And he did. And he just pulled 2-3 seconds out. And you're like, oh, okay, he's got him covered easily.
Yeah, had him covered easily. So let me back up because I didn't intend to talk about this, but so they put a new internal combustion engine in the Mercedes in Brazil, and it was on fire. I look at it like, does Mercedes just turn the engine up as much as they possibly can, using as much fuel and whatever else that they can, like pushing the absolute limit to it, just feeling like we're 8 points behind, nothing to lose at this point. If it blows, it blows. Is that,
no, I think it's still within tolerances, right? They don't want to have the thing go up in smoke and then your championship's over. So they turn the wick up for sure, right? They got more speed out of that, and they're doing it within the tolerances that I think they've set for that engine. And maybe they were unsure early in the season, but through testing, they were able to further develop it and go, yeah, we can do this. And maybe we changed the wing angle a little bit when the DRS opens. Maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah, but be it within the tolerances there as well. But we'll see what happens. But
did you see that at the start of the race, or I think it was start of qualifying? They had the device in there on the Red Bull car checking out the opening of DRS.
Yep.
And the announcers had said, like, we've never seen them really do that right before going out for a qualifying session, but they were doing it just to make sure it wasn't out of tolerance.
Again, I think because Mercedes and Red Bull are being petulant about it, I think the FIA is looking at it like, look, we're gonna do everything we can to just head off these two, dropping a bunch of nonsense in the media and talking, baloney out there about the car's legality and what they're doing with wings and
look, we did it right on TV.
Yep.
See, we just did it.
Yep. We just did it. If they're doing something funny, they're they've figured it out, but we haven't figured it out yet. So a lot of that. It is crazy. I could do without all the drama. I love the racing. I love the fact that it's not Lewis Hamilton just, clinching the championship when they were in Austin. I like where it's at.
And the other big story coming out of Qatar was Alonso on the podium.
Shout out the
first time in 7 years.
Yes.
That is so awesome. I was super happy. We were cheering for Alonso here at this household, and I was happy to see him back on the podium. And that yellow came out there at the end, which of course helped him, but he made the one-stop strategy work, kept the tire underneath him. They were even calling out to him, stay off of the curbs to make sure that tire doesn't blow. And he was able to come through. So I'm happy for that team, and especially for Alonso.
Yeah, me too. 2014, right? July 27th, 2014 in Hungary, while he was still a Ferrari driver.
Yeah.
I should say whilst, since we're talking Formula One, whilst he was in a Ferrari.
Well, that's fine. That was good. I think it was a big story too.
It is good. That's the best.
Were you bringing that up? I don't think you were.
I was.
Oh, good.
I was.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it though. And then, so to finish, Max is 8 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton with 2 races left in the season. Saudi Arabia on December 5th. That's a new track. And it seems that track is still under construction. It feels like they're still going to be painting that thing, as free practice 1 goes off. Which will be exciting. It'll be something new and different there. Abu Dhabi, or you and I probably know it better as Yas Marina, right? When we race the Formula One game.
Yeah.
Yeah. On Xbox.
Yeah, either or.
And that one's on December 12th. Not a new track, but a number of modifications to the layout.
I didn't know that. They modified that layout?
They're going to. Yep. For this year. Yep.
Good.
If you had to put a name on it, whose name are you etching in the trophy for 2021?
I think we would have a 8-time Formula One winner. Is that right?
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
That's who I'm going with.
Is that really who you're going with?
That is who I'm going with. Yes. I think they're going to make it happen. You need Bottas to do better than he's done. Like Bottas, come on, would get in second place.
Right.
And you need a way to get fastest lap out of Max Verstappen, which he got in this last race.
Yep.
Which, is a point or 2 that he gets for that. So it didn't close as much, but that's where I'm going. And I think I said that at the beginning of the season, and you told me
you probably
something
did
different because we had a bet on this.
We did?
And we did. Yeah. The Bellas, I believe.
That was last year when I smoked you when you said that Charles Leclerc would not beat Sebastian Vettel.
That was a bad one. You're right. We did have a bet on that one, but I think we carried it over to this year to who was going to win the championship. And you said from the beginning of the season, and don't let me misquote you, Dan, but you said from the beginning of the season that Max would win this championship this year.
I did. I was hopeful for Red Bull, and I thought that they would be able to really get it going this year.
And I know you're not switching.
No, I'm staying Max.
All right.
I'm staying Max. 8 points.
2 races to go.
8 points. This thing will come down to 1 or 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
You're right about Bottas, though. Bottas has to get in gear. I don't think that Toto Wolff coming on the radio and trying to motivate Valtteri Bottas in the middle of that race, I don't think is motivating to Valtteri Bottas.
No, I don't think so either. I've been watching his Twitter handle. He's been on the beach having a good time.
He's enjoying life. You know why? Got a contract in hand at Alpha.
Yep.
And he doesn't have to worry about any of this anymore.
That is true. He'll be happy to move on. So
yep. It's George Russell's problem next year.
Mm-hmm. So. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. That wraps up Formula One. So can we talk about this decor hanging behind me
but can we talk about the Baja 1000 for a second?
Yes. I did not have it in my notes, but yes, we can.
No, you didn't, but that was
I should have.
I just thought it was cool to see the results of that and having Alexander Rossi finish first in his class with his co-drivers there, which was really, really, really cool. And I think it was the first time I saw something go through the feed that said it was the first time you had an Indy 500 winner, a 24 hours of Le Mans winner, or was 24 hours of Daytona, and
I
the
think
Baja.
24 is at Daytona.
Yes, Daytona.
Yep.
So that was cool. That's all I wanted to do, is to shout out for that.
I think that really is cool. You know, I listened to Off Track with Hinch and Rossi, and he has put in a lot of effort and a lot of training, a lot of hours, getting up to speed with that and doing. I keep wanting to say training, but some practice runs in the dark and, you know, running that. I believe it's a Honda Ridgeline, right? That they run in that. So, good for him. Alexander Rossi, who has a standing invitation to turn 4, but you know, he hasn't.
He'll come on one of these days. He will.
Maybe.
So does he remind you of anybody else in IndyCar back in the day?
Nope.
Not a Robby Gordon?
No.
Just the different series he can drive in? And no.
Robby Gordon was a stud, man. Right. Great personality. He hung it all out there, just not the results of like a Paul Tracy. Right. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, Robby Gordon could get in anything. He could drive anything, but had great personality, you know, it's, and I know.
I'm starting to get that feeling about Rossi though. I'm starting to get that feeling.
Okay. It's going to be a long way for me to get that feeling.
All right. I think he can almost get in anything and drive it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Dude, are you going to make me say it like right now at the end of this podcast? He can get in anything and drive it. Where's he been the last couple of years? Well, his teammate.
He
has
just
been winning.
2022.
All over the place.
He'll be there. He's there. Trust me.
Okay. You know, we're going to do those podcasts where we're going to do our predictions for next year. And we're going to talk about our anticipation for next year. I can't wait to elaborate.
And I expect you to have Rossi way up on the list.
I don't.
You will, after having this conversation about the Baja and the 24 hours of Daytona and an Indy 500 winner. He can muscle anything around a track.
Okay.
Trust me. So you were mentioning something about your recording studio there and something hanging on the wall.
Yeah. So
can you tell me about this?
If you're
very interested.
If you're going to watch on the YouTube channel, you'll see that my road bike is hanging behind me here in the home office. And this comes courtesy of our friends at bikeriser.com. This has been showing up in my Facebook feed as well as my Instagram feed. And as you're acutely aware, I'm not on Instagram at all. So the few times that I've been on there, this has been popped up in my feed. It looks very interesting. This is my road bike. It is 3 platforms, basically, for lack of a better term, where it's just mounted into the wall. And then it's the primary mounting of this is using the pedal. And, you know, it was fairly easy to install. There's a QR code on the side of the box, which I thought was pretty slick. So, you know, you scan it with your phone and then it brings you to their video instructions on how to install it. And yeah, and it says it fits just about any pedal. The pedal's key here. The pedal's actually what's taking the brunt of, you know, keeping it against the wall like that. I use a road style clipless pedal, which I think they call an SPD SL. It's the 3-bolt triangle pattern. So,
perfect.
Hey, even better yet, one is coming your way, Timmy.
I'm so excited to hang my road bike as well, because mine is sitting next to me over here that you cannot see if you're on YouTube.
Yeah.
It is to the left of me, and it is looking for a place to hang because it sits in my office, my recording studio, every single day of the week, except when I'm out riding it. So I can't wait to have it hung up and be able to show it off. So thanks to the folks at Bike Riser for supplying those to us.
Yeah, it was really, really very kind of them to do that. And I'm thrilled to have it up. You have been an advocate of having my road bike in the house during the winter months. It gets cold here. And I certainly don't ride it like I do the fat bike or the gravel bike in the off season. So there it shall be.
condensation outside in the garage will kill it. So I'm glad to see that Bike Riser was able to get your bike in the house.
Yes.
And it looks awesome.
Yeah, it does. So, and like I said, one's coming your way here very, very soon. So,
I can't wait.
Yeah. Hey, that wraps up this episode of the Turn 4 podcast. We will continue to bring you content on a bi-weekly basis. In 2 weeks' time, we will have another terrific guest to the pod. I don't want to spoil it for you.
I'm so excited about this guest.
I know you are.
It's going to be so good.
Yeah. Keep an eye on our Twitter for hints. Make sure to subscribe using your favorite podcast app. If you like the show and listen on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a review and tell your friends about us. Engage with us on Twitter, our website, or our YouTube channel. All links in the show notes.
Perfect.
That's another episode of the Turn 4 podcast. Thanks, Timmy. Good to see you again.
Same here, Dan. Good to see you. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
You bet.
And to all the listeners, thanks for listening.